It's a challenging thing to read Genesis chapter 4 and give it the full force of your own imagination. Ask yourself, why did he do it? We're told from the text, why he does it. But what's he trying to achieve? What's he trying to do? Why does Cain kill Abel? And that's a challenge to answer that, because if I imagine why Cain actually does what he does, he's a humiliated elder brother. He's angry. He's angry with himself. He's angry with God. And what's he trying to achieve? I'm guessing he's trying to take things out of God's hands. Hey, you'd choose my younger brother, would you? Right, well, there's no choice anymore. You've just got me, mate. Live with it. That kind of thing. The reason it's challenging to do something like this is because I end up telling you as much about the dark side of myself as I tell you about the scriptures. But although that's uncomfortable, it's better that way by far, to reveal to you and for you to reveal to me a little bit of your dark side, rather than the alternative, which is deny and pretend. We can't do that, because actually when we do that we're in real danger. And actually we can't do that and be faithful to scripture. The Cain and Abel story fills the Bible in various forms, and a lot of people play both parts during their lives. Think of Saul pursuing David, and then think of David with Uriah. Think of another Saul executing Stephen, and then facing stoning himself at the hands of the Jews as Paul. The Cain and Abel story goes on and on and on. And it's not just that, it's that when John, for instance, writes his letters, in 1 John 3 verse 12, he says to everyone, do not be like Cain. That's a general warning to the church. You can't just ignore it. So if we're going to take it seriously, we better start thinking about Genesis chapter 4 imaginatively. Like for ourselves, how could I become like Cain? Well, the key thing in the story, of course, is that the Lord looked with favour on Abel and his sacrifice, but he did not look with favour on Cain. And just think for ourselves, when do I experience, most of us experience second-hand the Lord looking with favour upon us? In other words, we get praise, we get recognition, we get status amongst God's people. If a godly person comes up to me after a service and says, I was so blessed by what you shared, whoa, I feel like the Lord is looking with favour upon me. But I tell you what, if the same godly person the next week is jumping up and down and saying, what terrific preaching from Ezra, that was just, I've never heard preaching like that. In my little heart, boom-bitty, boom-bitty, boom, I'm thinking, he's never heard it? The week before he was shaking my hand. You know how it goes. So just for yourself, think about, for what do you receive praise and recognition and status and encouragement amongst God's people? And any works of service. It could be how you do the cleaning. It could be how you arrange the flowers. It could be how you play in the band. It does not matter what it is for. But just think, what happens then if that praise and that recognition and that status is redirected to somebody else? What are the feelings? What are the instincts that we have? What are the actions that we take? No. We all know what we're supposed to feel. That's the whole point. We know what we're supposed to feel, but it's a huge blunder to simply pretend. In fact, it's that blunder that will probably result in us becoming like Cain, because if you read something like Matthew 23, when Jesus as Abel, really, is dealing with Cain in the shape of the Pharisees. Woe to you, Pharisees, you hypocrites. And he keeps emphasizing, you hypocrites, you hypocrites. And what is hypocrisy? It is the same desire that Cain had to receive the rewards of righteousness without actually quite dealing with the reality of it. What does God say to Cain? If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But Cain doesn't want to do what is right, but he does want to be accepted. So Jesus, with the Pharisees, and you read through Matthew 23, it's hypocrites, you hypocrites, you hypocrites, and you think, well, that's bad enough. But by the end, we've turned to murder. Of course. I mean, Jesus says it elsewhere as well when he's dealing with, the issue of Satan and his offspring in John chapter 8, verses 42 to 47. He talks about Satan as a murderer from the beginning, not holding to the truth. Murder, not holding to the truth. Yeah. The big problem that the liar has is that the truth is still out there. And whilst it's still out there, it's got to be dealt with. How are you going to do that? Ultimately, there's only one way. Kill it. We need to take it seriously. The one thing, if church is going to still be live, it has to be real. We can't just say that John's warning in 1 John 3 is just to people who've wandered into the church but still have a taste for sickening violence. No, it's to us. It's to people like us. And we need to take it seriously and not go for the easy alternative, which is just deny and pretend. Loads and loads of Jesus' parables feature Cain and Abel in some form or another. We just took one. We looked at the parable of the prodigal son. And there it is, the same theme cropping up, the older brother. And what is the problem? What is his problem with his younger brother? Well, the problem is his whole way of being brother has just been exposed. That delinquent son has just turned up in the house, but we need to think, how? I mean, you'd probably ask this, wouldn't you? How can you do that? How can you be inside that party, dancing away, bopping your little bop, with your fancy clothes on, with the ring that's just been put on your finger? How can you do it? How can you not die of shame? And there's only one reason. He can do it because he takes absolutely seriously what the Father has said. The Father interrupted his jolly good speech about I am no longer worthy to be called your son, and insisted on popping the fatted calf on gas mark 7. Go figure. But it would be genuinely churlish to refuse, so he doesn't. The reason he's in that party is because, well, it's faith. Which is the difference between Abel's sacrifice and Cain's, according to Hebrews chapter 11. His faith. He believes that the Father means what he says when he says, I want to have a party over you. I want you to be the centre of it. In he goes. What the Father wants, the Father must have. But of course the older son, his way of being son is all about him. He believes in what he can do. And he can't understand why the Father isn't so excited about it either. And of course he ends up outside the party. What will happen next? We finished though on a note that said, well, is every conflict a Cain and Abel conflict? You know, when Paul confronts Peter, read all about it in Galatians chapter 2, or when he says of the circumcision party in Galatians chapter 5, I wish they'd go the whole way and emasculate themselves. Has Paul regressed? Is he now Cain again? Well, actually, no, he's not. What Paul is gunning for in that instance is hypocrisy itself. He's having to deal with hypocrisy. Bad news, I know, but actually we will have to do so too. Lovingly, using the minimum necessary force, we will have to engage and conflict with hypocrisy if we're going to keep it real. If you have been, thank you for listening.